Good morning. I interrupt my morning and yours, apologies for that, to talk to you about some property news this morning, which has rather grabbed my attention, and I'm sure it will grab yours as well. The Labour Party, vying to grab the keys for number 10 Downing Street at the end of this year, no doubt, have announced that they believe that if they insist, wait for this, that all estate agents must have at least one A-level and all estate agency business owners must have a degree, that magically, somehow, that will immediately cleanse the industry of what they call the cowboys. So an astonishingly intellectually vacant, headline-grabbing load of old guff from Matthew Pennycook, who's the shadow housing minister, who says that he thinks that if you have an A-level, all of a sudden you end up full of bags of integrity. Those with A-levels don't do any wrong. They are in some way bastions of integrity, and effectively higher education is the remedy to all ills. Who knew? Now, not only is that, well, poppycock, Mr. Pennycook, but also, strangely, oddly, we've been beset since about 2009 with scandal after scandal after scandal in relation to, guess who? Members of Parliament. Yes, those 650 people that are paid £80,000 a year, elected by us every 5 years to represent us. And many, I was going to say the majority, but many, certainly not all, cover themselves in shame, as well as other things, I'm sure, on a regular basis. Whereby they hardly do us or themselves or the integrity of our political system any favours with all the scandals that they get involved in, whether it's expenses, whether it's drugs, prostitutes, doing the wrong thing time after time, and basically being self-serving leeches. Guess what? 86% of members of Parliament have a degree. So, Mr. Pennycook, my message to you is, when it comes to the majority of people having some higher education qualification, it doesn't seem to have worked when it comes to the Houses of Parliament in terms of automatically flicking a switch and turning you lot into people that we can rely on, respect and trust. So quite why you think that the estate agency industry needs more education in order to sort out any little wrinkles it might have where reputation is concerned, goodness only knows. Talk about an out of touch political class. Anyway, that's my rant for the morning. Actually, while I'm at it, we might as well talk about this. Property Industry Eye this morning are stating that the majority of house builders, would like to see Labour win the next general election. Now, that surprised me when I first saw that, because, of course, house builders normally favour a Conservative government. House builders often, let's just put it frankly how it is, donate lots of money to the Conservative Party. But the Conservative Party pretty much, particularly recently, have failed to build enough homes. In fact, most governments over the last 40 or 50 years have failed to build enough homes. It seems to me that the reason that Labour are being supported by, according to this article, 70% of those house builders that were polled is because, of course, Keir Starmer a few weeks ago announced that he would renegotiate the boundaries on Greenbelt. So in other words, house builders rubbing their hands thinking, hang on, all of that lovely Greenbelt, you know, hundreds of thousands of hectares in effect that's been largely unchanged since the 1950s. Looks like those house builders now are salivating at the fact that they might be able to get their hands on it thanks to a change of policy if Keir Starmer were to become Prime Minister. Very interesting stuff. While I'm here, while I've got your attention, Estate Agent Today, this is what they're talking about today. Latest Zoopla index. Despite what you might see in the media, both trade press and national news, this Zoopla index is really encouraging, really positive and really important. Basically shows that buyer registrations and, importantly, rough sales are up significantly by about 17 or 18%. That mirrors numbers that I saw over the weekend by Chris Watkin, actually, that shows that sales this year, at this time of this year, versus the same time last year, are up about 20% on the same week last year. So let's just make that clear. Sales right now, in the last week, are 20% up on the same week the year before. Now, that's not just a small nudge. That is a significant increase in business that you lot as estate agents are doing out there, which obviously goes without saying, and I look forward to the comments by the doomsayers. You know who you are. That clearly bodes well, not just from a transactional point of view, but of course from a price point of view, and overall sentiment. Sentiment, after all, is what drives markets, particularly the property market. So yes, a little bit going on in estate agents today, as per their list of stories there. Property Industry Eye, as I'm here, they also cover the estate agency should be forced, love that word, don't you? Forced to have an A level, or if you're a business owner in the estate agency sector, a degree, and a load of other stuff here about right to rent, yeah, and so on, that you might be less interested in. But there's actually also, I noticed in the Negotiator, there is a story that states that if reform, so the pretenders to the conservative throne almost, or maybe not pretenders, maybe they are the real conservatives, given that they seem to be more true to conservative principles than the current Conservative Party. Richard Tice, the leader of the Reform Party, is saying that if he were elected, that he would scrap stamp duty and indeed inheritance tax. So from a property market point of view, all good as far as I'm concerned. One final word, even though I've slated Matthew Pennycook and Labour for this ridiculous announcement that they would insist that estate agents have a higher education certificate, a little thing to go on the wall, like behind me, that says you got an A level in knitting, and therefore you are now a good estate agent because of that qualification. I'm actually all in favour of licensing, and I wish that the government would get its arse in gear and actually do something via Property Mark or the Guild or someone. I don't think we care, or they care, frankly, whereby licensing for estate agents, mandatory licensing with teeth in terms of there being proper regulation of bad behaviour. I think that that should be introduced rather than this ridiculous announcement around A levels. Okay. Sorry to interrupt your morning. That's a rundown of today's property news, but headed by me, it being my goat being got with this ridiculous, stupid, intellectually vacuous announcement from Labour that you lot out there will all have to go back to school, because if Labour get in and they insist that estate agents have to have an A level, it's retrospective. So seriously, the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in the estate agency industry would have to go back and get an A level at night school or your local comp or whatever in order to stay in your job. It's madness. Have a good day.